Much. The chair now recognizes the full committee chair, Representative Westerman.
Thank you, Chairman Stauber, and thank goodness for that Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which said we were supposed to be producing oil on the North Slope. And thank goodness that that was done when it was done. And, you know, we had record revenue last year, $4.9 trillion of revenue, but that wasn't enough to offset just the $6.3 trillion in discretionary spending that the Democrat majority in the House, the Senate, and the Biden administration, you can't generate enough revenue to pay for the spending that the Democrats in Washington want to spend. Dr. Felgus, hopefully you understand how the federal government profits from energy production. We've talked about some lease sales, but where does the real revenue come from?
Most of the revenue from the federal mineral revenue program is from royalties.
From oil?
From oil and gas royalties.
And how are those royalties generated?
Well,
it's when you produce oil and gas, you pay a royalty on what's been produced. How much oil and gas has been produced on these lease sales since the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was passed?
Well, currently...
Zero. You haven't produced any new, there haven't been any new wells drilled. There's zero production. That's why there hasn't been any revenue generated. Plus, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act doesn't need revenue from Alaskan oil to pay for the revenue that far exceeded what the CBO and the Joint Tax Committee said it was going to cost. I sat down with the CBO director. He admitted they messed up like they always do when it's a Republican piece of legislation. Now, the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska proposed regulation constitutes a major change in policy, and as the department notes in the rulemaking, it relies on the Integrated Activity Plan for the NPRA. The department didn't do NEPA for the Integrated Activity Plan change last year, and it isn't doing it for this rulemaking either. Dr. Felgus, why is the department refusing to go through the NEPA process for these major changes?
Well, there was an extensive NEPA process that went through for the NPRA IAP that was finalized in 2020, and we relied on that NEPA analysis.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's very similar to what we're talking about down in the Gulf of Mexico, Mr. Huffman, about using previous NEPA analysis. But this seems like a similar situation to the migrant camp in New York, where the administration didn't do NEPA. Mr. Felgus, to me, it seems like the department only does NEPA when it's convenient or when you want to delay things. You are doing another round of NEPA in AMWR because you want to stop energy production there, but over in the NPRA, you're skipping the NEPA entirely to lock up millions of acres. How long is the AMWR draft SEIS?
Well, I say when we do NEPA, we try to make sure that
it's
our
1,400 pages, 700 not counting appendices. How many did the Fiscal Responsibility Act say this document? How many pages could it be?
I believe that 150 or 300 pages for particularly complex EISs.
150 for EISs and not to exceed 300 pages. Why is the department complying with the law?
Well, our focus is on making sure that our NEPA analyses are legally defensible and robust.
My focus is on the administration following the laws that we pass in Congress. How long did you give Alaskan natives to comment on this? I think it's already been talked about, but 60 days?
That's correct.
You know, that's why we changed NEPA to mandate those page limits so that people can actually read the documents, be able to understand them, and provide comment in the comment period. Once again, it seems like the department only follows the law when it's convenient to follow the law, and only follows the law when it's convenient to the political ideologies of the department. What's your response to that?
Well, we think it's very important to make sure that the NEPA analysis is legally robust, defensible, and can stand up against future challenges.
How can it be legally robust when it violates the law that was passed by Congress? Does it mean it's got to stand up to your internal memos and it's got to stand up to your regulations that you impose internally? Or do you, it seems like the administrative state has become the fourth branch of government, and you're more focused on following some internal memo and process and political ideologues in the department rather than following the law that Congress actually passed. Well, what would you like to tell the American people about why the department blatantly disobeys the laws that Congress passed.
Well, we have seen a lot of NEPA analyses that were remanded by courts or vacated by courts because they weren't robust. They were missing essential parts of analysis. And so when we're doing NEPA, we're trying to make sure that we have an analysis that can withstand future challenges.
So you just violate the laws that Congress passed, try to appease your lawyers there at the Department of the Interior, push your political agendas, delay. Your goal is not to produce energy in Alaska. You can do that by delaying is your best tactic. Unfortunately, the country that needs energy, the Alaska citizens who need a strong economy, it hurts them when you delay. It also hurts America when inflation's going through the roof, and it hurts our national security when this administration is begging foreign countries that are like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, to send more oil here, and it's doing nothing for the environment. It fails on every level. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The chair now recognizes Representative Huffman, California, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.